Yeah, today's report really is just the corn, soybeans, and wheat world supply and demand figures, and they just kind of go over, revise mostly demand side. The production side was taken care of in the January crop report, and today we're really just going through and revising what the demand base has been. And believe it or not, the USDA essentially didn't have any changes. The only thing they really made to the U.S. balance sheet changes were the wheat demand was down by 25 million bushels. As they lowered their export pace, so accordingly, and the corn and soybean U.S. numbers were unchanged across the board. This report actually featured a few changes that were expected and some that weren't expected. Perhaps one that wasn't expected was a 2 million ton increase in corn production out of Brazil. I think people thought that that crop was getting better, but I don't think they anticipated that in this report. So the 2 million ton increase in there was offset mostly by a 2 million ton reduction in Mexico, but it's still, the fact that we ended up with a 2 million ton increase in Brazil was a little bit unexpected. In soybeans, Brazilian production was up 1.5 million. That was largely expected, maybe a little bit heavier than expectations. Argentine bean production unchanged at 49.5 million tons. But the other change would be Australian production was up 1 million tons. World wheat stocks increased by 4 million tons, and that was maybe a little bit heavier than people were expecting. Wheat's been one of those things that has had lofty prices but has relaxed a little bit, but this 4 million ton increase from last month's pretty severe. Because we're carrying such tight U.S. balance sheets, particularly in soybeans and corn, wheat U.S. balance sheets aren't that tight. But the traders are fearful that will really lower the carry out a little bit more just by even subtle demand changes can really have a big impact on the overall supply and demand picture this year. So there's a heightened sensitivity, and it's really only because of the situation this year. Other years, this March report's really pretty neutral. I mean, it's just not something that has a big impact on prices. But we're dealing with historically very tight stocks-to-use ratios in corn, very tight ratios in soybeans as well. So even a 5 million bushel change in beans could have a big impact on here. We've got a major report coming up in March 31 with a huge impact on the market as USDA will re-estimate their stocks and acreage estimates for this coming year. That combined with an incredibly sensitive weather market ahead as we are, as we get into the fields, any kind of planting delay, any kind of adverse weather is really going to have a major impact on prices as we really rely on this growing season to replenish world stocks. Between now and this key March 31st report, we've kind of entered into this report heading on a downward slide. I would expect that to kind of continue. Maybe we stabilize just a little lower than here. The fireworks are going to be March 31. Right now, it's probably a continuation of a trend. We're seeing a little bit heavier stocks, really a neutral report. And a neutral report in this market is probably just a little bit bearish to prices, but not overly so heading into a key report and obviously a major growing season this year.